This week, a federal judge slammed President Trump, his lawyers, and the Justice Department over the president's lawsuit against the Internal Revenue Service. The judge says the president's lawsuit over his leaked tax returns was filed for a, quote, improper purpose. She stopped short of voiding the deal, which guarantees the president and his affiliated companies immunity from tax audits and investigations. It also established a $1.7 billion so-called anti-weaponization fund. But the Trump administration says it has abandoned that after facing backlash. Now, the president's legal team responded by writing, quote, the IRS wrongly allowed a rogue, politically motivated employee to leak private and confidential information. President Trump continues to hold those who wrong America and Americans accountable. CBS News legal contributor Jessica Levinson joins me to answer some constitutional questions about this case. So this has obviously come up a lot in Todd Blanche's confirmation hearing. Before a committee, before he goes to the full Senate. Has a president ever sued a federal agency?
Not that I know of, and not this way. And this is the first question is so important because it really leads us to why this is a who decides question. Federal judges get to decide when there is a true case or controversy. You cannot walk into the federal courthouse doors unless there is a conflict between the plaintiff and the defendant. And you asked me, has the president ever sued a federal agency before? And I think the answer is not that I know of, and specifically not this way. What happened? We have President Trump as a taxpayer suing the IRS, which is obviously an agency under the executive branch, and then the Department of Justice, which is clearly under the executive branch, defending that suit. Already we have a problem because we have private plaintiff Trump who is suing. Again, the IRS and the Department of Justice is defending, and he is obviously as president, head of those particular agencies. But then even more so, what we have here is the judge saying, you just used me for a ruse. There was never really a true conflict. You filed this suit because you wanted me as a judge to bless it. This was settled before the government even answered, and there was never a conflict. You used these federal courthouse doors for improper purposes, and that was the crux of the judge's reasoning here.
Jessica, I've interviewed you enough times to know that you might have a little bug in your throat. So we're killing your mic if you want to clear that really quickly, because we do have more to get to. And I'm actually going to see if our director can pull up the next graphic. Does this ruling invalidate his blanket immunity?
First of all, thank you for knowing me well. Second, maybe not. So this decision was all about the settlement fund, but I think there's a very good argument to be made that this decision also affects all other parts of the settlement. So the decision, meaning the settlement, had a few big parts. One of them was we're creating this $1.8 billion fund, but it wasn't for President Trump. There was always a mismatch between who sued versus what the settlement actually gave. The settlement gave potential claimants who said, I'm the victim of government weaponization, the ability to get money. But as we talked about, there were never factors to determine how you get that money. Another part of the settlement, Lindsay, as you know, was that President Trump and family members were essentially immune from audit. I think there's a good argument to be made that that part of the settlement is also no longer valid.
Jessica Levinson, thank you.